So here's what I'd like to do. I want to talk a little bit about gratitude. How well do you all do just in general before we get started with gratitude? Is it something you feel like you're pretty good at?
I think on a surface level, I am.
Yeah.
Like saying thanks for the small, like it's chores around the house, or like if you did something for me, I would tell you thank you, or Daria did something, I'd say thank you. But I think it's the deep personal life stuff or even spiritual life, like what Christ has done for us. I don't know if I have a full grasp of gratitude.
Yeah, same here. Like with people, I'm usually pretty good, but when it comes to just a kind of my general attitude and thanking God and remembering everything He's done, I can struggle with that.
Ron has probably never been unthankful.
Oh, thank you for that, Brian.
I knew you'd do something like that.
Yeah, I'm good at the surface level stuff, I think, in my humble opinion. But yeah, that deeper, are you really thankful when you wake up in the morning or in the night, in my case, are you thankful that you can get out of bed and you're able to walk, your knees aren't hurting or not hurting very bad, as you get older. All those things that, I have a roof over my head. We were just talking about Cuba and the terrible situation they're in where a lot of times they don't even have power. And it's really rare that my electricity goes out. And when it does, it's a couple of hours at the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a refrigerator and a freezer full of food that are just fine. If I don't open them up, they'll be okay. I have washing machine and dryer and so many things. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm an American. I deserve these things. Why?
Right. Like there's certain things we have that we aren't thankful for because we think it's just something you should have.
Yeah.
And for Sarah and I, it had to be a deliberate effort through marriage counseling to see the value of thanking each other for the little things. Now it comes more naturally, but there's even some marriages, it's like you just assume, well, of course my husband took out the trash. That's what he's supposed to do. Of course my wife did the dishes or took out the trash or whatever it was. That's what she should do. No, we thank each other. It's easy to let those things slip past. Now, with that in mind, there was a great devotional. I don't know who found it. But it's called The 9 or the 1 Gratitude Reading Plan Day 4, which is everyone's favorite title. It's a great title. Really
Yeah, it was a 30-day plan, and I just picked which ones I liked.
And it's actually a really good one. And it has to do with Luke 17, okay? So open up your Bibles to Luke 17. We're going to start at verse 11. If you're watching on the live stream, the paper will get curiously close to my face because the print is very small.
Oh my!
Do you want to read it?
Sure, I can.
Yeah, let's do
11
it.
to what?
11 to 19.
Okay.
This is Jesus heals 10 men with leprosy.
On the way to Jerusalem, he was passing along between Samaria and Galilee. And as he entered a village, he was met by 10 lepers who stood at a distance and lifted up their voices, saying, "Jesus, Master, have mercy on us." When he saw them, he said to them, "Go and show yourselves to the priest." And as they went, they were cleansed. Then one of them, when he saw that he had been healed, turned back, praising God with a loud voice, and he fell on his face at Jesus' feet, giving him thanks. Now he was a Samaritan. Then Jesus answered, "Were not 10 cleansed? Where are the 9? Was no one found to return and give praise to God except this foreigner?" And he said to him, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well."
A couple of observations I made as I read this. First of all, they were already at a distance, the 10 lepers, because at that time, if you had leprosy, you were set aside. You couldn't be close. So they were far enough that they had to yell. I mean, it specifically says, Luke pointed out, they yelled in a loud voice, "Jesus, Master, have pity on us." And remember, Jesus' direction was, go and present yourself to the priest. And as they went, they were cleansed. So picture people far off. They have to yell to get Jesus' attention. They turn around, and as they're even getting further away, they're cleansed. In a dramatic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
I could see myself easily going, oh my goodness, it's gone, and I just start running. I can't believe it. This is amazing.
Go back to your family.
Yeah,
friends.
like, it's not as if they were standing next to him. I'm like, whoa, this is great. Thanks, buddy. You know, not that you should call Jesus buddy, but you know what I mean. I could see myself continuing on. It's not the natural thing to think of, but I think in this circumstance, it does make sense. But one guy turned around. Now, I find it interesting that Luke pointed out specifically that it was a Samaritan.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a reason, because the way Luke wrote it, it's like he forgot to say it.
Yeah, oh, by the way, he was a Samaritan.
Yeah, in the NIV I have in front of me, it says, one of them, when he was healed, came back, praising God in a loud voice. He threw himself at Jesus' feet and thanked him. And he was a Samaritan. Now, why would this matter?
The Jews hated the Samaritans. They were considered a lesser race, sort of like a half-breed, if you will. They despised them.
Time and again, it's highlighted in scriptures that it was like, and look, the Samaritan's the one that came back. The parable of the Good Samaritan is wild because it was the Samaritan who helped the guy, not the couple of priests and Levites and stuff that went by. So what do we make of that?
Well, I think first of all, we need to note that usually in these types of stories, we are not the hero.
This is the thing.
Right.
We are likely not the one that's coming back to give thanks. He's not telling the story because we are the ones that give thanks. We're the ones that don't.
And I think that's part of the point of it being a Samaritan. In God's providence, it was a Samaritan who came back, where Luke is saying, look, all these people who should be thankful were not. And the last person you'd pick to be thankful is that person. And yet we still read the story and make ourselves the Samaritan that came back. I'd be that guy. I'm so thankful. I thanked the Lord this morning for my Snickers bar I had on the way into it. Lauren read us Luke 17, verses 11 to 19, which is a story where Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem, was on the border of Samaria and Galilee, basically. And there's a group of 10 lepers standing at a distance, and they yell out in a loud voice, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. And Jesus essentially said, hey, guys, head back present yourself to the priests. They turn around and go. As they go, they're healed. Only one came back to thank Jesus for healing him from leprosy, and it was the Samaritan. Luke was, deliberate to point that out. So we've got a wonderful devotional that we're looking through tied to this with gratitude, and I want to take us through a portion of it. Here's what the guy says. When I read Luke 17, 11, and 19, I feel angry at how the 9 lepers Jesus heals walked away and never say thanks. They ask Jesus to heal them, and after he does, if they overlook and ignore his gracious work for them. I scoff at their ingratitude and think, how could they do that? It's frustrating, if not infuriating. Don't they know what Jesus did for them? How can they not give thanks? And as I just can insert this, it's easy to read it and go, yeah, they had leprosy. Da, da, da. Leprosy was a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, your body was totally rotting and falling apart, but you were separated from everyone you know and loved.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a level at which you might go, what's so frustrated, angry? No, I mean, that's the dramatic nature of that type of healing. And not being grateful, yeah, I get this guy. He's like, yeah, of course it's infuriating. He says, it's easy to spot the failures of others when we read these stories. When we read about Israel in the Old Testament or the disciples in the New Testament, it's easy to point our fingers and shake our heads about how quickly they veer off course. One minute they're rescued by God from slavery, and the next minute they're asking to go back. Jesus tells his disciples he came to lay down his life for others, and before long those disciples argue about who will be the greatest. These stories give us a window into our own heart. I'm like the unfaithful Israel or the disciples who missed the point. I often do what the 9 ungrateful lepers do. My frustration with them should morph into conviction over my own ingratitude. You and I have all kinds of needs in our life, and yet despite how we ask God to intervene, we often ignore God when he answers, don't you? We take the blessings and run. We move on once we've had the thing we wanted. We're as guilty as the 9 lepers who walk away. He goes on to say more, but I think that's the core of what he's trying to say, is we really ought to take more time to see ourselves in those 9 lepers, in that we ask God for things, and when we get them, we just kind of move on. To what extent is that true for any of you? I know it is for me, but I want to yield.
Yeah, the older I get, the more I realize that people in general, but also me specifically, are quite forgetful. It is very easy to poke fun at the Israelites for how quickly they forgot the dramatic exit from Egypt. But
Yeah, the parting of the Red Sea.
the plagues that they were spared from. But I do this all the time. I forget how God has come through for me and the innumerable blessings he has gifted to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've had those times, right, where you're pleading with the Lord for months or maybe even years for something. And you get it, and maybe you go, oh, thanks. That's about it. You might even just go, finally.
Yeah, or you stopped praying for it, and then it was answered somehow, and you just forgot that you were even asking for it, so you forget that you should be grateful.
Yeah. You've asked for it for so long, it's almost like the Lord owes it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that being the case, what does it look like then? I mean, it doesn't have to be, I don't think, as dramatic as this one leper who came back and, dropped to the ground and wept and, all that. It could be.
Yeah.
But how can we be deliberate about being thankful for even the little things?
It might be as simple as leaving yourself notes around that might be like, thank God for a warm house to live in, or thank God for a smoking hot wife, in my case.
Good morning, Dana.
Yeah, just in case.
She just texted she's listening.
Oh, my. But, leaving yourself something to remind you. And if notes aren't your thing, maybe there's a visual, a hat that you put on the dashboard of your car that can remind you of something or someone.
Yeah, I'm reading this book right now that's about rebuilding positive habits. And one of the things it really advocates for is starting your day with prayer, and specifically starting your day with a prayer of gratitude. Thanking God for this undeserved blessing of this new day that he's given you.
I think it also takes intentionality. Maybe you need to go back if you keep a prayer journal or a prayer list, or you have a small group who keeps a prayer list together, and recall what you've been asking for, whether you wrote that down yourself or someone else, or even, like we read in the Bible, setting up stones of remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
That can even be, if that works for you, actual stones, write on the stones what God has done for you. Keep them in a little nice, cute dish at your front door, and have stones of remembrance of how God has proven himself faithful to you.
Those are all great ideas, and I would encourage folks listening, whether that fits for you, come up with something where you can spend time as we approach Thanksgiving. You don't have to be melodramatic. Don't get attention for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the point. The point is being reflective on truly how much the Lord has blessed you when you don't deserve it, and how there's things you've received that you should be thankful for, and you haven't been. God's not mad at you, but I think you ought to thank him for all those things.